Well, hello and welcome to the Sovereign Career Podcast. It's the first one. And this is my guest, Sharon Green, the lovely Sharon Green, who was there right at the beginning of my AI journey. And I'm sure we'll come into that a little bit in a few minutes. But that was 3 years ago. But we've only really bumped into each other occasionally live, haven't we, Sharon? And so mainly it's been an online kind of relationship, I think, or friendship, as well as colleague. I hope to think of it as almost friendship now. And because I came from an HR interim background myself, and I know that's really why I was drawn to you and your amazing network that you've got, I wondered if you'd tell us a little bit about yourself and the network.
Hmm, cool. Yeah. It's kind of interesting when you meet people in real life after you've connected online. It's always, yeah, I always love that. So it's always good to do that. And so I'm Sharon Green. I would always say that I'm a professional interim. That's what I do for a living. So I used to have a permanent career, and many years ago I stepped off to run my own business. And in that business, I go into clients to add capacity or capability to their people teams, usually, not always, but usually their people teams. And the three areas of work that I say I focus on are around people change and transformation. So it could be running big projects or smaller projects where people want to make some changes. People change and transformation, probably over the last 15 years, has usually involved technology. So my second kind of area of work and specialism is around people technology, which kind of links to the AI thing, I think, very nicely. And that might be helping clients select.
Yeah, that wasn't why I chose you, though, because I
No,
mean,
I know,
actually,
I
you're
know.
not you're not a card-carrying member of the I Love AI
Oh
Society, are
no,
you? Or
don't
anything
give
like
it
that.
all away. Yeah, so people technology, because usually that involves change, or they want tech enabled change, or they want to look at a system or maximize the system or whatever. And then really for me, the third area is the people experience. So how we learn, how we develop our people, how we give them a great experience and put the human into work, really. So those are the kind of the paid work. And then my side hustle, my passion project, is around running a community for people professionals who work independently. So that could be coaches, consultants, interims, freelancers, whatever they want to call themselves, solo entrepreneurs, which is really around peer-to-peer support, networking, learning, sharing, because it can get a little bit lonely when you're on your own.
Can't it? I mean, I know, and it was your WhatsApp group that I came into
Yeah,
quite quickly, although I know it's also on LinkedIn,
yeah.
but it's a vibrant group. It certainly
Mm,
was when I was part of it. And then I mean, I joined it when I was still looking for work,
mm,
this was 3 years ago, but I mean, it just dried up for me, the HR interim work remotely. It had to be
yeah.
100% remote for me because of where I live. And I think people looked on the map and sort of thought, oh, that's a long way away. I don't think we'll choose her, what we're going to choose her for. And then lots of other things happened as well. And I just thought, well, like you, a lot of my working life has involved HR tech
Mm,
projects. So it was a natural
mm.
sort of extension for me to just hop on that. I was fascinated anyway. I mean, I couldn't help myself. I was literally just fascinated by it. I started experimenting on people at work,
Mm.
and they were very willing to join in. That's good. So yeah. So what's your before we go on about
Mm,
talking about AI in a bit more detail
mm.
and how you use it, etc. Because that's what this is all about. Real people talking about how they really use AI for work, maybe for pleasure too. It doesn't have to be
Mm,
just all about work. But I know Kiara keeps you very busy, that consulting business.
mm.
And are you doing that with your partner? You do that together or no? Because always see a photograph of you with
Oh
a
yes.
mysterious figure.
Yeah, that's one of the things that when when you're trying to bring the human into your work, Carolyn, and you kind
Yes.
of choose a photo that you think, oh, that you set up your WhatsApp chats or WhatsApp basically, and I think, oh, that's quite a fun photo to have. My
Yes.
That's my husband on my photo in a crazy
Christmas outfits you're
Christmas
wearing or something.
outfit. Don't even get that is a whole other podcast about the Christmas outfits in the family.
I love
Um,
that.
but like the irony is my husband likes to keep a zero social media presence. So that
Oh,
that whole photo, and yeah,
well, he's slightly masked on it, isn't
he
he?
is, thank
Yes.
goodness. Yeah, so his anonymity is preserved, so he'll be pleased about
That's just
that.
a little mysterious. Oh, I love that. I love that. So, yeah, so having cleared that up, that you are a solo practitioner,
Yeah,
can I just ask, can you paint a picture for how you work? You're working from home at the moment, are you? I mean, I've got this lovely sort
yeah,
of view of a very nice background where it looks very
yeah,
comfortable. A lot of art work for
yeah,
people who aren't watching the video and are just listening. It's a lot of artwork. There's lovely colours and things. It's giving me a really nice vibe. I'd love to come round for coffee, but you probably live miles away, so that's not very
yeah.
practical.
Yeah.
But yes, tell me about this. Is this where you work from all the time?
Not all the time. I think it really depends on. I'm kind of led by the clients, so I have done pure remote work. So I've had a few clients who are remote first. So that tends to be particularly startup scale ups who maybe have started up without having an office, then maybe did generate an office. I've had a couple of clients like that for whom
Yeah.
into the office is like totally optional. Um, I've
What's your,
had
can I just ask, where's your nearest city? Which is your
Oh,
nearest city?
I'm based in London. So I'm based in
Yeah.
Southwest London.
Okay.
The creative background is I'm a very big fan of creativity.
Yeah.
I'm not an artist, but I love looking at art and being creative, I guess. But yeah, so it really does depend really on the clients and their projects. So some clients I've had have a real propensity to being in real life more times than not.
Yeah.
And I think when you're the external person, it really helps to build up a cultural picture to see people in their own environment and not just transact
Yeah.
through screens, which I think is important. But this is my Chiara HQ, the centre of
Right.
the business. So
RHQ.
yeah,
Because meeting in person, a lot of people listening will be thinking maybe they go into work some of the time, maybe a couple of days a week or something. And there's a lot of value in that, peer-to-peer
yeah.
contact.
Mm.
And it's just social as well, isn't it? I miss out on all that. So I mean, I sound very enthusiastic about it as though I do it all the time, but I don't.
Yeah.
I work here on my own quite a lot, just me and the dog, my German Shepherd. But yeah, so I mean, I know you're all about the real stuff, and I love that. I think that's what people are drawn to. Well, that's why I'm certainly drawn to
Mm.
you, Sharon, because as much as I love I love the what I call zone 3 stuff, which is from the jobscaping, sort of framework, which is the human stuff.
Mm.
I love that, and without that, it's just I don't know, there's a piece missing from the relationship, I find. So maybe do you think that's why what CEOs who often get a lot criticized a lot for this, wanting us all in the office, do you
Mm.
think that's one of the reasons they really want it, or are they just suspicious and think that we're all, lazy and just sitting around eating toast and
I mean, I don't know. Like, I mean, I think over the like, so as I was saying, I've always had the capacity to work remotely. Since I set up my own business, I've always had that capacity. Do I think, but I think over the years of running it, that the the kind of appetite for accepting that from a client side perspective has varied. So I mean, I'm lucky that even right at the start when I had my very first client, they were like, "Oh, you don't need to come into the office. It's fine. We know you're going to get stuff done.
yeah,
The kind of work that you do, the kind of projects that I was doing could have been done remotely. However, the for me, it's a little bit like my approach to AI or technology. It's about being purposeful,
yeah,
intentional. Um, it's got to serve a usage and a purpose. And similarly, now that there's more of an acceptability to be remote
mm,
first or to the tech enabled kind of work that we have and the way that it balances between work and home and life, etc. Then I think for me, it's still the same. There's an intentional aspect to being in an actual office or being with people,
yes,
as well as the kind of work that I can do remotely, and it's probably less questioned. I'm coming back to your question about the CEO and the senior leadership team. I think that there's a number of additional layers, a little bit like the technology discussion, that just because you can doesn't mean you always do it. And
Yeah.
also, I think that that there's a certain level of skepticism or concern, or in some instances, the slightly darker side of work, I guess, around control and
Yeah.
maybe task management and leadership skills when you're dealing with a completely dispersed or remote workforce. There's a lot of
But
things
you're
that
dealing with
kind
a lot of that, aren't you, in the
of,
experience side of
yeah,
things?
yeah. So it's a bit more
Yeah.
it's a bit more, it's
Layered.
always wider than the presenting
Yeah.
issue, I
Yeah.
think.
See,
Yeah.
I just sit here in my ivory tower and I don't, because I don't work in experience or culture.
Mm.
I mean, obviously I bump into it and I see it, and I know people who
Yeah.
do work in it, like yourself. So I have conversations or listen to conversations about it, but it's not really high on my priority list to be thinking about all the
Mm.
time. So it's not an area I've got into. That's very interesting. So okay, so here we are. We've got a nice picture. I can see, there you are working, responding to the client's needs
Mm.
really in relation to HR. Um, in the HR transformation work, you're doing tech work, HR tech work, and you're doing employee experience work. So,
Mm.
and this is all Kiara. So
Yeah.
here you are, based at home, and you are a human first person. And I know you always put at the end of your posts and things, AI wasn't used in the
Yeah.
making of this. So all the errors of my own. I can tell you it's very different with mine because they
Yeah.
are, yeah, because I've spent quite a lot of time making sure, as I'm often asked by clients and when I'm training with people, how do I get my voice into it? Because that's
Mm.
how they regard they can save a lot of time.
Mm.
So, but they're not necessarily doing social media, but some are, especially
Mm.
interims who are needing to promote themselves a lot
Mm.
and stuff, and also applying for work perhaps and doing work.
Yeah.
So where do you sit on the AI spectrum, as I call it, or think about it?
Mm.
And that we'll just get into the conversation around the AI spectrum.
Yeah.
Where are you on it? Are you the champion? Are you the skeptic? Or are you somewhere in between?
Uh-huh.
And if so, how does that work for you?
Yeah, I mean, I think you kind of asked before we started recording, I think, or pre us thinking about this chat, about whether or not to give like a scale of where I was, as well as a kind of a label to it. And so I kind of was thinking, oh no, how do I do that? Like, is it like a 1 to 10? Like, where am I? Um, but I was thinking that if I gave a scale between 1 to 10 of where I sit, then I would say that I'm probably like 3 to 4 on the where I think about AI and how it relates to my work, and I'll explain what that kind of means as the
Do you mean
con.
like in an orbit? It's in your orbit three to
Well,
four. It's not
yeah,
it's not the
I
first thing
kind of
you
think
reach
about.
for.
I mean, part of me thinks, how much do I know about it? How much am I using it? Is probably why I thought of that number, um, because I know that there's more that I could use it for. And there's always more to learn. I mean, like at the heart
Mhm.
of me, I started off, very heavily and early in my career, always talking about learning. And so lifelong learning is one of those things that I'm a big
Yeah.
champion of. So I think there's always stuff to learn. So I would always put myself as there's more to learn than where I'm starting from. In terms of the label for it, I would say that I'm a curious skeptic about it. Not that I don't, and that's quite a complex um, definition, because I'm thinking about it on a macro level, the impact that technology and AI now particularly has on the workplace. What's going on in the market with tech products and the tech marketplace, and how challenging that's got for clients when they're choosing tech that is AI enabled, the amount of it, the hype, the sales hype around it, and the market share around it. So some of the macro level stuff is probably why I'm on the curious skeptic side. But for me, this is like a latest build on the technology kind of bus, really, if you think about it like that.
Yes,
So,
yes.
I've always been interested in technology. When I was permanent, I introduced the first kind of online tool that we used for around graduate recruitment. Graduate recruitment was part of my job, so so I kind of was really keen on that. I introduced the first I'd call it training admin system, not learning management system, because that's where we were at that
Yeah.
stage. It was about volume admin. So I've always been interested in technology, kind of quite an early adopter on certain things. I've been on LinkedIn forever, those kind of things. So I've always been interested in tech. And for me, AI feels like a part of the journey. And I don't think I'm not the first on the bus for it. It's got to be response to a need. It's got to have intent, purpose. I'm very curious. I've worked with a lot of technology and a lot of tech people, a lot of information security people. So I've learned at the feet of these people who are much more techie from a back end perspective than I am. And so I know to be curious and skeptical, because there's a lot of other stuff that you need to consider, not just the surface level of the
Yeah.
truth. So that's probably where I'd sit.
I mean, okay, well, yes, I take all of that completely, and I mean, I would agree that's my experience to some extent, in the sense that, yes, this isn't our first rodeo.
Yeah.
Here we are with another amazing technology that's coming out. I mean, remember the internet? You probably
Yeah.
don't, but I do, coming out. And so, you know, that came out, and it was like it was going to change the world. And I always remember my boss saying to me, probably about 3 or 4 years after it had come out, the internet, this is the
Yeah.
World Wide Web. He said, I was promised that this was going to eradicate the need for paper in the office. We were going to have paperless offices. He said, and my paper bill, meaning the bill for the office, is bigger than it's ever been, because everyone's printing everything out.
Yeah.
Now, that was really interesting to see that
Mm.
happening. And yes, we did feel the need to press the button. You had to see it in writing, you know, what was it, in print, because this was familiar.
Yeah.
However, I do think there's a massive difference. I mean, I was listening to Josh Burston talking to John Helmer. Actually, John's coming on the podcast as well in a couple of weeks' time. But talking to John about this very topic which you've just identified here, about it's not the first time we've seen something like this. And of course, Josh has been around for a while as well. And he said, you know, we'll wait and see. He doesn't think the disruption is going to be absolutely massive like it's predicted to be. He thinks that it's some of it's overhyped and so on. I won't keep going on, because otherwise I'm putting words in his mouth. But bringing it back to my thoughts on that, as I was listening to that interview, I thought, yeah, there was a lot of very good points made, but I feel it's different this time from the perspective of the pace. The pace is so fast. And what we always had to deal with in the past was an adoption curve, which, you know, you were dragging your employees along with you. You're dragging them along. But now you don't have to, because they're all using it at home for themselves, on the way to work, whatever. They're using it to live their lives, and they see their colleague next to them producing reports which are very whizzy, better than theirs, maybe getting home earlier. That would be a dream. No, just doing more work, really. But you know, all those things, and there's a human pressure, that pressure to, you know, the human survival of the fittest. Sort of, we must have that thing that's giving an advantage to somebody else. So we're overcoming this adoption curve much more quickly than we otherwise would. But my concern is, and I'd like to ask you about this, if you've seen this in your travels and whatever type of work you're doing. I'm quite concerned that I see employers finally investing in training, yes, but they just want their employees to learn how to use the tools. They don't really want them to understand it, its implications, etc. And I think that, you know, the ethics side, the guardrails, all those things that, you know, really you have to have an opinion about if you're going to innovate. And safely or well or whatever, however you want to look at it. And I think that the next thing we're going to see down the line is maybe 6 months, 9 months, a year, I don't know, them coming back full circle and say, well, I don't understand it. I thought this thing was going to give me a competitive advantage, but it's not doing. Why not? My people are just doing their job and going home. And I think that's going to be the reason why. But I would like your thoughts on that, because how do you see it being embedded into the workplace?
I mean, I think that, I mean, I was on a conversation, I think it was last week, where we were talking about, where I was kind of, where people were talking about the use of AI tools within a certain part uh, of HR. So looking at development, and particularly around assessment and development,
Yeah,
and having a kind of Chatham House rules conversation about how people were using it, what kind of considerations do they have, what kind of tools are they looking at, etc. And my when I was kind of, and I felt very privileged to be in the conversation, because that's not something that has come up in some of the clients that I've worked with. What tends to happen is, you're starting with where they're at. So I mean, a recent client was talking about wanting to use more AI um, in their kind of people function. And I said, I get that, that's kind of the goal, but we've got to start with where you're at, which is, at the moment, we need to clarify processes, we need to consolidate those processes, we need to make sure that all of the data that your AI tool of choice will feed off is accurate, up to date, in the right place, so that it can work within the system that you've created in your organization. And so you can't just kind of plonk a tool on and kind of
no,
hope
not really.
that that's going to work. There's some foundations that you need in place, and you're not there yet. And so sometimes it's a client like that, where you've got to kind of talk to them about the expectations. Sometimes they're further on, they're looking at experimentation, they're wanting to, they've got a particular problem that they're wanting to solve. They're wanting to go out into the market to work out what tools they can have, whether or not it's within their Microsoft suite, for example, or with
Yeah,
their tool of choice, what's in their tech stack, now, to maximize, or whether they've got to go out to market and create a brand new tool. But it's kind of, so I think that there'll be people and organizations at varying stages of that journey. And you can already see by the thought leadership papers that are kind of bounced around and published, particularly by, if you think of the big consultancy companies where they're
yeah,
investing a lot of money in that,
yeah.
that they'll be at a different stage to your, startup,
Yes.
scale up, or in my experience, I've worked for private banks or regulated businesses, which will have a totally different
Hugely
risk
different.
appetite. And so
Yeah,
they're all going to be on. So I think it's kind of that kind of cliche of, we're all, having a different journey, in some senses. And I
yeah,
think that then I think some of the other aspects, I mean, it makes, for me, it makes sense. I've already said, I do people change, I do people tech, I do people experience. For me, they are interrelated and connected. And if
yes,
sometimes clients won't see that, or they're starting with the technology, but they're not thinking about the experience, or how
yes,
to bring people
yes.
with you, or the
Fine.
change impact of that. Now, some of that
Yeah.
adoption curve might be um, less for some people, more for others in your workplace. So, and I think that that's the interesting thing about all of these advancements, is that they look, on the surface, they might look like, oh well, let's just use Copilot, or how many licenses do we have for, you know
Yeah.
who gets the fancy licenses, who gets the basic, do we use Chat GPT or Gemini
Yeah.
or Claude or Perplexity or whatever other tools out there. But once you get into it, I think it feels more like a potential for richer conversation,
Mm,
if you're willing to have
mm.
it. I think some people will be at the surface level of tools, and that's where I think it's our
Yes.
job as people professionals, or whatever we're coming at it with, to start where they're at, and maybe add some additional insights from our experience, or what we bring in as
So do
external
you think
people.
then that HR is doing a good job in terms of dealing with this age of AI, or do you think on the whole it's standing back a little bit and saying, well, look at all the problems, guardrails, and all that stuff we need to think about?
I mean, I think you've always got to have a, I mean, you've always got to have a rounded view. I mean, I wouldn't be on the kind of evangelist side of AI, nor would I be on the kind of the other end of the spectrum. You know, it's there, it's coming. The rapidity, the rapidity of it, like, so the fast pacedness of it and the plethora of it, I think it makes it unescapable. So we've got to be in the conversation. Are we as people professionals always in the front of the conversation around technology? Probably not. I think that there'll be a lot of organizations defaulting to the tech team and thinking about it as a tech project.
And is that a
Probably,
mistake, do you think?
I think it's usually a mistake to think of it through one lens. I mean, I've been
Yeah.
I've been lucky. I mean, I did a great project where I was the people person in a tech function where they were doing an agile
Okay.
transformation change project, and I was in the tech function, and it was great. I learned an awful lot about technology, and I was also you know, and I felt I was pretty tech savvy, to be honest, before I got there. But you know, I
I think
learned a lot.
you learned a lot, yeah.
Yeah, and also I
Because you've got your agile background as
yeah,
well, haven't you?
exactly. So
So you
I
could
got a
talk their language to a certain extent,
yeah,
and get their trust. But
yeah,
I do hear
the
people
same but
saying
different.
that,
Yeah.
you know, HR is sort of looking to tech to lead it, or saying, well, it's really about the licenses and things. I feel to some extent that I'm hearing quite often, if I compare different types of clients, because sometimes I'm working with HR, sometimes I'm not, sometimes I'm
Yeah.
working with other types of clients. And HR seems to be much further behind the general uptake of AI, in my view. They want to know how it can work for them. They probably even want a quick fix, but I'm not sure they really want to get stuck in. And is that just, do you think, because of the sort of people it attracts? Or is it because it's now fragmented into two levels and you've got the sort of, you know, you've got the senior leadership team of HR, and you've got the operational side, and do you think there's been a fragmentation? And there's a lot in that question, I know, but that's me sort of just bouncing it over the fence to you, Sharon, for your impact, and just for
Yeah.
you know, what's the flavour that you're getting, really?
I mean, look, I mean, I obviously, like, it's part of my my kind of business, and how I get work is to be in that. I sometimes feel like you know, the projects that I've been involved in have meant that I have got exposure, you know, over a number of years to the technology side of the people kind of function, look in an interest in data, you know, interest in systems and how they work, um, and then so I remember a recruiter telling me once, why are you not advertising this as part of your service, Sharon? Because I don't see many HR professionals who are um, that tech focused, that tech savvy, um, and so on one level, I think that there are it's a broad church, the people function, and so you'll get some people for whom that stereotype of, you know, we don't do this or that, we're not great at tech or whatever, is there, and that helps me get work. So however, I do think that there maybe there's too broad an agenda of what the people function is doing, and therefore
Mm,
they need to there needs
yeah.
to be a consolidation of that, so that, you know, to work out what the focus is. But I also think, even if you're not, it's about stepping into conversations where we might not necessarily know the answers. We're not coming at it from a technical perspective even, but from a you've got to be in the conversations across the organization. This is an organization wide matter. So coming at it from either pure
Yeah.
tech, or, you know, being in the people team and only getting in touch with the tech team when you need something from them, is neither of those is the right approach from my
So
perspective.
collaboration is better, you would think. Yeah.
Completely collaboration, co-creation, learning.
Yeah, it's very agile, isn't it, to do
Yeah,
all those things
yeah,
and co-design and things. And
definitely.
I mean, that's a good thing, isn't it? Because then you've got your buy-in and all those other good things that you're going to need anyway to get
Hmm,
projects like this off the ground.
yeah,
Look, Sharon, it's been absolutely fascinating talking with you, and listening to what you're saying here has opened up so many thoughts for me. I've made some notes as I'm going along, and I could just go into them, and we could be doing this again and again, but like going into tech stacks more
yeah,
and how exactly would you look at redesigning the HR function to some extent. And I think these things are just fascinating topics. But what I could ask you, if I can ask you before we go,
yeah.
what would your advice be to an HR interim at the moment
Hmm.
who is thinking, should I spend some time getting to know more about AI? What would you think? Would you think it's worth it or not?
Definitely worth it. I think it's not going anywhere. We're not quite sure what impact it's going to have on the world of work, what it's going to have on our own individual workloads. But unless you get curious about it, experiment with it, have a point of view and an understanding of it, then we can't make informed choices. So, I mean, I use when I do use AI, it's intentional. It's about what I need it to do. You mentioned I don't use it for my writing because I like writing.
You
It's a craft.
like writing,
Yeah.
yes.
But if
I
I
think that's so
wasn't,
important, isn't it? People feel that they should be using it for everything, that there's this pressure that it's somehow going to take the jolly bits away from them, the bits they enjoy doing, the joyful things.
yeah,
But
and I
it
think
really shouldn't.
use it intentionally is what I'd say. I mean, the way that I use it is for specific things that I need to do quickly. That it's almost like my critical friend sometimes. When
Yes.
that is how. So I think, but I would also say think about your values, your ethics, which tools you want to use. Um, pick a few tools. You need to kind of cross triangulate, or triangulate the evidence because of
So,
hallucinations,
for
etc.
example, would you suggest using different types of, I mean, I heard you mentioning 4 or 5 different
Yeah,
AI assistants, for example. Would you suggest, like, using a chat GPT plus a Perplexity perhaps, or experimenting with them yourself,
yeah,
not necessarily without permission, obviously,
yeah,
but doing that so that you get the feel, because they do different things. They behave differently, don't they?
yeah.
Yeah.
And I think the key thing for me is whether you're using them internally or externally is I don't put my own IP in there. I don't put client data in there. I anonymize things. If I use it, I use it as a baseline. I'm quite critical of the information that I get from the tool. I ask it for references, so good prompting to find good information. There's some tools that I don't touch because I don't like the ethics of the founders,
Yes.
but
Yeah.
other people might not have that point of
Mm,
view, but that's mine, and that's kind of about
yeah.
my kind of values. So I think it is about um, being open, but and that involves also listening to people who are quite critical of it, and concerned about it,
Yes.
and kind of getting your own point of view. I think is really critical.
Well, thank you very much indeed, Sharon. I've really enjoyed this talk with you, very much indeed. And I think that the message that I'm taking away from this is that you very much value intentional use of AI, and also that you advocate being well informed, and it doesn't really matter where you are personally on the
Mm.
spectrum at the moment. Join the conversation, be part of things, and then you can decide. And I love that. I'll vote for you at the next election. So thank you very much indeed.
Great to
To
talk
speak
to
to
you.
you again soon. Take care.